It. Am I live? Are we on the internet? Oh, we're on the internet. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Read Write Book Club. Yeah, that's a totally original line from me and definitely not from Talks Machina at all. Welcome everyone to this week's book club. We're doing the second half of David Sederais' Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim. With me today is Brendan, as always.
I mean, yeah, as always.
Today and usually. Just putting it out there. I don't know.
Most of the time.
And it's me, your host, MC Pepper Pockets. Welcome everyone in chat.
Welcome. Yeah. So yeah, continuing this guy this week.
Yeah, we're this is the good half in my opinion. The first part is all like build up.
I kind of agree. I thought there was more interesting perspectives in the second half. And I do kind of wonder, well, have we determined what the chronological writing order of this book was?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Or I certainly didn't look up what I don't think they're in order.
Well, because I was just wondering if the second half was more of like more mature. Like a more mature writer, like he's had time to develop.
Yeah, I don't know. It certainly feels like it. Like the stories kind of have a more arc cohesively to them, and I feel like there was a more of a uniform theme in the second half, but maybe that's just because I've now had a month and a bit to sit and think about all of the first half.
Yeah. Yes, I did finish the book. I know that's my thing, but still, I finished it.
Well, you know, I also finished the book. So that's something. And our potential guest did not finish the book due to a number of scheduling problems. Like he moved and he was out of town for a while. So
yeah,
that happened. But we finished it. So that's 2 out of 3.
I mean,
it's not too bad.
I'm still like 7 for 11 or something, or 8 for 11.
Yeah, not terrible. Did you listen to any of the audiobook for Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Racing that I sent you?
I did not. I will though, because I'm actually super curious. But I was gonna hold off on that till I got back from Toronto.
Right, because you're going to Fan Expo.
Yes, I am.
And when is that? For those who don't know.
Next weekend. So it starts on Thursday, August 31st, and runs until September 3rd.
Well, that is there anyone you're particularly looking forward to seeing there?
I'm meeting a few of my friends who I know from online. So a bunch of different artists. But the thing I'm most looking forward to is there's a writing for comics panel with 2 of my heroes, Jeff Lemire and Jim Zub, who are going to be doing a thing together, and I think that it's going to be amazing. Like, that's totally my jam. So I'm really excited for that. I set my the Fan Expo app allows you to set timers and for the schedule and everything. So I'm going to be I set it for like an hour in advance. Like, remind me about this. I need to go to this. If nothing else, if I don't even attend a single part of the con, I need to go to this one thing. So,
well, make sure you go. Because if you don't go,
I'll
go. Fucked up.
I'll go.
You better go.
The only reason I wouldn't go is if the line, like, if I couldn't get in, which is unlikely, but you never know.
It could happen. Cons get crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So.
I'm not going to any cons.
Yeah, one of these days you're going to have to come with me.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Just for like a single day. Like
cons just don't really appeal that much to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I think it's worth it to go once, just like one Saturday, to experience it.
I don't know. I guess I'd have to find the right one, because like the conventions that are just about merch, I have no use for. because I got too much stuff as it is, and like the big fan video gamey culture ones I don't really like because of that video gamey culture. I just don't. I think it's weird, and the internet's kind of a gross place in that area, and I don't really need to be part of that. And really, more than anything, it's just way too many people in one place.
Yeah, the crowds can definitely be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. And like, what am I gonna say to any of these?
I don't know, man. Like it's one of these things. Like I guess it's different for me when I know I'm going down to see specific people and do specific things. Like, you know, I have a list of like 7 people that I'm gonna see.
Right, but you're looking at this more as a networking thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like this is
whereas it's like
professional event for me where I'm going specifically to talk to people and meet people and attend
people like the hypothetical people.
Hypothetical people. I can tell you some people if you really want. I'm going to be seeing Richard Pace. I'm going to be seeing Lori White, aka Salty Sketches. I'm going to be meeting up with I'm going to stop by and see Shillen again, say hi. Who I met in Montreal as well. There's a few other artists who are exhibiting also from Montreal that I'm going to definitely check out again, see what's up. Who else? I'm still debating whether or not I want to get Jeff Lemire's signature, because I kind of do.
You're going to take the roughneck down and get it signed?
Ooh, that's a good one. I didn't think of that.
How did you not... What?
Well, I was thinking
that book.
Man. Yeah, but like I own like a ridiculous amount of Jeff Lemire books, so like.
All right, fine. I know you hate the channel. That's fine.
That's a good point, though. That is a good point. Because I do have. Well, I mean, I do have the signed print to go with it. So.
Yeah, and then have him make it out to Read Write Book Club, and we can sell it on Amazon and make $1 million. We'll split it 70-30 because it's my
no dice.
My thing.
It would not sell for $1 million.
Look, you got to dream big, Brendan.
That is true.
Not small.
Yeah, and then the last person, I'm still considering whether or not I want to try and meet Jim Lee.
Jim Lee.
Yeah.
Of comic book fame.
Yes. Jim Lee of comic book fame, unrelated to Stan Lee, also of comic book fame.
Stanley Lee?
No, Jim Lee is an artist. He's one of the founders of Image Comics. He started Wildstorm. He's super, super famous and been in the industry a long, long time. And he just recently started streaming on Twitch. Like
everyone's on Twitch
like
now.
Yesterday.
I was just watching Will Smith, not that Will Smith, VR developer Will Smith, who now streams Plunkbat like all the time while I was playing Plunkbat, so it was like recursive. It felt good. Felt natural.
Yeah. So yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that. Playing a game that you were also watching being streamed. Like it just somehow multiplies itself out. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the audio problems where you hear gunfire in the stream, but you think it's in the game or the other way around. I guess what I'm saying is I'm playing Plunkbat right now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
That's not true. I can't run that on my laptop. Not a million years. Maybe when I get the new one. Yeah, so I think we can just kind of dive right into it.
Yep. Wait. Does the chat know there's anything different about Sam's house today?
Oh yeah, I didn't say it. I didn't say it because I forgot to say it. I'm recording in a different room today. I'm not in my office. I'm upstairs. I have all my books behind me here, and up here, more books, and over there, which you can't see, is even more books. They're pretty much everywhere. Yeah, I thought I would try this today. About 10 minutes before the stream, I moved everything, and I think it looks fine. I'm a little washed out, but that's because I literally have... Oh, here, I literally just have lights sitting on chairs right next to me, so a little bit crude,
Yep.
but it's working.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be more
It looks nice.
globular.
It feels a little better.
Yeah, my office is kind of shitty. That's what it's for.
Yeah. All right. Blue steel, please.
Can't blue steel. I'm sufficiently greased up because these lights are right in my face. That's a thing. Actually, that's a thing for the coming year. I got to get LED lights because these are way too hot.
Yeah, they're halogen.
Fluorescent.
Or
Oh,
yeah.
are they?
No, you're right.
No,
They're fluorescent. I forgot.
And they're bright. I just looked right in them. Confirms
Yeah.
they're bright.
Yeah, I'm glad I have the soft boxes on mine.
Yeah. Well, even with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Lights.
Lights.
Hardware problems.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's an Amazon purchase.
For sure.
So yeah. If we want to go. Speaking of first world problems, the first story, the end of the affair, all about differing opinions on movies.
Oh shit! Did I miss one? Oh, I did.
Did you missed a story?
Yeah, I missed the story. Oh my god. Because the audiobook started with "Repeat After Me."
Oh yeah, if you start on section 4 or whatever.
Yeah, I just assumed it was the halfway point.
Yeah, I also listened to the second half of the audiobook just because I could.
Yeah.
And because it's, in my opinion, just like a whole separate thing. It's at least as funny, if not funnier, than the actual written book, but in kind of a different way.
Yeah, the audiobook was interesting. And we'll circle back around to that. Talk for 5 minutes and I will read this.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right.
Whatever, man.
All right, guys.
It's 4 pages.
Hello, chat. This is how it's a super short story. And this is one of the interesting things about this book is that it doesn't have consistent story lengths. It just, as long as it takes to tell that story, it feels like. So the end of the affair, like Brendan said, is only 4 pages long. Maybe not even that. It's 2 half pages. And it's all, I mean, it's fundamentally just Hugh and David go to a theater and see a movie, and each of them comes away with this like completely different perspective on this romantic comedy. David interprets it as as a comedy, whereas Hugh thinks that it's like the most touching romance story that could ever be told. And of course, this causes David to ask, "Do you always laugh at?" Do you always laugh at tragedies or something like that?
It's comedies.
Yeah, no, but that doesn't.
No,
do you always cry at comedy? Sorry, I got it reversed. Yeah. Where's my notes?
I love Ralph Fiennes. Sorry.
Oh yeah, because it was a Ralph Fiennes movie. That they were watching.
Ralph Fiennes and Julianne Moore.
Yeah. I didn't look up the movie on IMDb to actually see what it's about. Did you? I guess you didn't even know we were going to read this. So
no, my bad.
Well, I thought it was interesting because really, like, the way the two of them react to this same story in 2 very different ways. So they react to it in very different ways, and it's, I think, planting the seed of the main theme of the second part of this book, which is people being unable to see things from others' perspectives, David especially, but also pointing out and making himself aware of that kind of failing in his interactions with other people. And we'll definitely see that more as we go down into like 6 to 8 Black Men and the later stories where he's in France and the Netherlands and kind of dealing with the cultural differences between Europe and America. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't left with like a strong feeling at the end of the affair. But I definitely thought it was like a very kind of poignant way to show the difference between the way people interact in movies and on TV and the way they actually interact in real life. Because he talks about the big romantic gestures and like, you know, running to the airport.
Sorry.
Yeah, and it looks at the difference between Hugh and David, but I think it's just about the difference between any two people when they're looking at something like this. But it was more about the difference in like tone and subtlety between real life and interactions you see in media. Because he, like I said, like it was all the big romantic bullshit in the movie, and then like the way he and Hugh actually interact in real life it's all small things, like just the one little raised eyebrow and you get a whole like argument has already happened in your heads. Without a word even being said.
I thought that line there about Hugh hitting him over the head with a broken wine glass, and he like pretends to be unconscious, and he's like, it would have been romantic, except Hugh stepped over me to get the dustpan instead of rushing to my side.
Exactly. It's not over the top. It's just, okay, you're faking it. I gotta clean up this glass now, though.
Yeah. Well, it was even like they know each other that well. Where like Hugh's like, yeah.
Message received and ignored.
But the part I gasped at was he was saying that no, they don't live in wartime Paris, but it's just as likely for a bomb to go. In wartime London, but it's just as likely for a bomb to go off in Paris. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, actually, that was very interesting because of
is this real life?
Yeah, exactly. He called it 10, 15 years early.
Yeah.
Which is scary. But really, that just tells you the reality of how that shit happens way more in Europe than it does here.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, Paris and London, right? Bombed to the ground. They've been flat twice, once for one of them in the last 100 years.
Yeah. For sure.
So yeah, so that was a good, I thought, a short and sweet kind of opener, because it just like throws you right in immediately.
Yeah, and Sissel is right. It really cuts the line there, right? Where it's like this is no longer about childhood. This is about me and my life. And real life. Yeah, in real life. And that leads us really into the second story, which was personally my favorite of the book.
I thought that one was extremely interesting, not just because it involved two parrots.
So repeat after me, which is about Sederais going to visit his sister Lisa, and it's really about, like, on a certain level, it's about how his family interacts with him and what he does for a living, which I thought was super fascinating, because I mean, if you think about it, it's like this.
Yeah. Well, he puts this microscope on them professionally.
Yeah, like everything he does is a God, why can't I remember words right now?
Words are hard.
I don't know what to say. Everything is a memory. Everything is something that happened. It's a real life occurrence. He's writing them down, taking notes, and making stories out of them, and throwing them to the world.
Yeah, and I thought the way he kind of builds this mirror for himself in the story, through the potential of his stories being optioned.
Yeah. Like
for a film, I mean, so basically it's him and his sister. Well, I guess they go and see a movie that is eerily similar to their lives anyway. Oh no, wait, is that a later one?
No, I think that's this one. I think he goes to see movies with... Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's this one.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, he goes and he sees the movie with his sister, and it's too much like their real life. Like the brother has to go and freeload on the sister for ages, and then leaves with just like a disaster behind, as he says, like, that's expected of him because that is his role in the family, is the kind of hopeless drifter.
Yeah, he's the drifter. No one takes his word at face value, and to be honest, he doesn't give them reason to.
No, he plays into his role, but that's something that he talks about, is the way that each of them feels most comfortable when they play into that expected role.
Mm-hmm.
But that the fact that, you know, Lisa hasn't become the world leader that they kind of expected her to be has all thrown them off, so they don't know how to cope with this change in their expectation anymore.
Yeah, and that struck a definite personal note for me. Not that everyone, like, people thought I would be a world leader, but, like, people definitely didn't think I'd be a college dropout and, like, all that jazz, right? So, to a certain extent, I do feel that, but I was so profoundly struck by how much it debilitated her as a person. Of being like, oh my god, how can I ever be good again?
Yeah, the total collapse of confidence.
Yeah. Which is fascinating.
It's eerie, but you know, like, that happens every day.
Yeah. I mean, all good points, and I'm not 30 yet, so that's fair. But I just thought it was interesting, and I did identify with that a little bit. Obviously, I don't have anxiety problems like that, so I'm not worried. I'm not super worried about it, but I also identified a little bit, like, my mother personally is very much that has that little bit of paranoia in her, where, you know, she reads a study about something and gets all weirded out, right?
Yeah, the sister hears the study about exploding phones, and then suddenly, like, anything that talking on any phone will give you cancer or something.
Yeah.
Like, just because these two pieces of information entered her mind at the same time and got merged.
Yeah. So, you know, I've definitely seen some of that stuff, for sure.
Yeah. That whole I guess the way the movie, or the idea of their lives being turned into a movie that they would then turn around and watch again,
Yeah.
seemed really trippy to me in this one.
For sure. Did the movie ever get made?
No.
No. I didn't think so.
I don't know how you would turn any of this into a movie.
I was thinking that as well.
Like, really, it doesn't have a cohesive plot. I don't know. They just take the name and turn it into something. That's what optioning is more about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, just owning the potential to turn that name into something.
Yeah, and the nice thing about options is you get paid either way, whether they make a movie of it or not. So.
Yeah. So anyway, my point with the movie was that, like, he's able to see the way that he's putting his family into the public eye a little more obviously, it seemed like. I especially loved his line about trying to justify to justify, like, telling everyone these intimate moments. And he's like, I imagine the alternate reality where Paul is putting out press releases about his bowel movements, and you know, his sister is talking about these, like, these horrible incidents where she's got to suffocate a raccoon, and, you know, she's just on talk radio discussing that.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality, these stories are always prefaced with, "You better not tell anyone," but
yeah,
you know, and then he turns around and is writing it in the book that we're reading right now.
Yeah,
we're reading him repeating, "Don't tell this to anyone."
Exactly. So yeah, I really liked the content of the story. I liked how real it was. I felt like it was one of the more real stories, because it delved deep into the relationship, and not that he doesn't do that in the other stories, but I really felt like I got his family's perspective in a way that some of the other stories don't really give you, because they're filled with his perspective, but not necessarily his family's perspective. So
Well, it's his perspective of the family's perspective.
well, fair enough. That
Right?
is
Him
fair.
looking in the mirror, in the hall of mirrors.
But yeah, it was fascinating.
Yeah, that. Um, so really, the most important thing about that whole story is the very ending, where he's sitting in the dark kitchen, alone with the parrot, repeating the same thing over and over again, and trying to get the parrot to say it.
Yeah.
Keep saying, "Forgive me, forgive me."
Yeah.
I thought it was a pretty poignant end to just cap off everything that he'd been talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, do you really do you feel like he has a lot of guilt over how he's treated his family?
Well, yeah, I definitely think I think he feels a guilt when he goes back and witnesses it, but I don't think he's guilty at the time of writing.
Yeah. I get the same impression where it's like he almost doesn't think of the consequences and just puts stuff out there, and then when he afterwards he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." To a certain extent.
And he even says it in this story is like when the sister tells him the story and she's like, "Don't tell anyone," and he says, "Well, what are you gonna do with it?"
Yeah.
Right? Like he doesn't in the moment even consider it odd that he would just take this whether she likes it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. He keeps coming to that moment of realization, and then losing it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like that later story a little bit.
Yeah.
So the next one is the one that I remember the most, certainly from this. 6 to 8 Black Men.
It's also the one that's the least about him.
Yeah, it's definitely more. It's more like a travel log.
Yeah.
It feels like.
Yeah, but it's really more about stories that were told to him by people in other countries, and it's not really about stuff he did so much as it's about stuff he was told, I guess.
Yeah, it's more about his experience than about him experiencing.
Oh, that's a fascinating observation. His writing is a compulsion.
Yeah, that I can see that for sure, because he tells people things that he promises he won't.
That's very insightful. I think that's entirely accurate, actually, considering how much how much everything else in his life is a compulsion. That would not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah. So definitely, this was a dissection of cultural differences, because it's all about Sederais going to different places and talking to people about how those places are different, or about certain things that he can pinpoint that differentiate them.
Yeah.
He says when he's in the States, if he's traveling, he always asks about the gun laws locally. Am I allowed to do a concealed carry here? And can the blind hunt? I think it was Texas and Michigan. The blind are legally allowed to hunt.
Yep.
But then, of course, gun culture, not as big a deal in Europe, where he lived when he was writing this. Yeah. So instead he asks about, as he said, barnyard animals at first.
Yep.
So what sound does a rooster make? And then about when people open their Christmas presents, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole practice is kind of interesting, right? Where like, what is he trying to learn?
It felt like he was just trying to dig into those weird little cultural nooks and crannies that you don't ever really interact with unless you're a local.
Yeah.
Right? Like how many tourists are celebrating Christmas the Dutch way in the Netherlands?
Right.
Even if they're there on December 25th. As we discover in this, that's not even when they do it.
Yeah.
Right? As he points out, they open their presents on the 5th, I think he said, which was
December 5th.
Yeah, December 5th, which is
the feast day for St. Nicholas.
Right. And even the idea of a saint's feast day, I think, is kind of alien to most Americans.
Yeah, I would agree with that actually. It's not something that's alien in my family. Obviously, my mother is from Ireland.
Obviously.
Well, not so well. You know that. It's fine. So for those who don't know, my mother's from Ireland, and she knows tons of the feast days. Right? Like, she talks about Boxing Day as St. Stephen's Day and stuff like that. Like, that's the way she talks about it. So, like, growing up, that was a big thing. But I agree with you. Most North Americans, the non-religious ones anyway, don't really know those things in the same way.
Yeah, well, it's just not... It doesn't have the cultural weight and history here that it does in Europe.
Yeah.
Where, like, I don't know, where those things mattered because they happened there.
Yeah.
To people locally, you know, like it's not some abstract thing on the other side of the planet from 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But so the point of that is how he's set off really by discovering, like, oh, you do Christmas on the 5th. Okay, well, how is that? And then he starts asking questions like, what about Santa Claus? You know, like, how does he get here from the North Pole? And they're like, no, he lives in Spain, obviously. He comes over, like, he dresses like the Pope because he is the former bishop of Turkey.
Yeah.
To which, of course, Sederais says, well, Santa Claus is not the former anything. Setting the stage for the whole theme of this particular story, which is, again, a inability to see to align viewpoints, to see things from the other person's side.
Yeah.
And so we get the whole description.
Yeah.
Did you want to start?
Yeah. So I'm looking at the description right now. So Saint Nicholas travels with what was consistently described as 6 to 8 black men. I asked several Dutch people to narrow it down, but none of them could give me an exact number. It was always 6 to 8, which seems strange, seeing as they've had hundreds of years to get an accurate head count. The 6 to 8 black men were characterized as personal slaves until the mid-1950s, when the political climate changed, and it was decided that instead of being slaves, they were just good friends. I think history has proved that something usually comes between slavery and friendship, a period of time marked not by cookies and quiet hours beside the fire, but by bloodshed and mutual hostility.
Yeah, so I thought, just to stop you there, I thought that was a great, like, American perspective on this.
Yeah.
Of, okay, just hold up, guys. We tried this. Not so hot.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But the other, like, flip side of that coin was when Sederais said, what do you mean 6 to 8 black men? Like, it's not elves or anything? And the Dutch taxi driver goes, that's very unrealistic. Like, of course, that's absurd for him because that's not the story that he's grown up with.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then basically, so if a child is naughty, Santa and the Saint Nicholas and the 6 to 8 black men beat him with a small branch of a tree, also known as a switch. And if they're really, really bad, they put him in a sack and take him to Spain.
Yeah, and which brings us to the quote that Stiswell put in the chat, which is, the adults of the Netherlands, when putting their children to sleep on Christmas Eve, get to say, so listen, just in case, you know, Santa Claus comes in the night and abducts you, you might want to pack a few things because you might wake up in Spain tomorrow.
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious when they kick him and beat him with a switch, and
no, they just pretend to kick him.
Yeah, they just pretend to kick him, and I'm like,
which is even worse.
What? It's like this weird, like, they're taking this, like, ancient myth and, like, trying to make it fit with modern sensibilities.
Yeah, it's like turned into a pantomime.
And it's like what? He pretends to kick them. Why does he do that? Why does he even bother?
And it's definitely not slaves that he brought with him.
Yeah, it is definitely not slaves. They're his friends.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to see this alien view on what everyone would consider like a familiar holiday.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Well, a lot of people would consider a familiar holiday.
A significant portion of the human population celebrates Christmas or some version of Christmas.
Yeah. But I think it's more from the like Canadian or American perspective. Like we have a very uniform sense of what this event is.
Yeah.
And it's pretty detached from what it started out as.
Yeah.
Like it's really become much more about a family event and a commercial event rather than being a religious event.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, as you in this story, you can see very much it's about that morality play aspect, which is more of the religious angle, I thought.
I think yeah, to a certain extent, a little different because it's not like about it's obviously not about like Christ specifically.
No, but it's about following.
Yeah.
Like being a good child.
Yeah.
Following the rules.
Yeah. You don't want to get coal or beat.
Well, or yeah, get beaten and abducted to a foreign country. Like there's a difference in scale. I feel like between getting a lump of coal and a swift beating with a stick.
As a history major, is there a conflict between the Dutch and the Spanish that's like significant to as where the story would come from?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know for sure, but I put a lot of money on it being because the Low Countries, i.e. Spain and not Spain, the Netherlands and Belgium, the actual Low Countries, and Luxembourg and a couple of the little bits of Germany and France right next to them.
Yeah.
Were controlled by the royal family of Spain and later Austria, but it kind of bounced back and forth. The point was that the Dutch rebelled against their Spanish overlord, so they were kind of seen as a foreign conqueror or like illegitimate overlord.
Right.
So it's not too surprising that you'd have someone arriving with their servants and soldiers on a boat from Spain.
Yeah.
Who's like an authority figure, especially a religious authority figure.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so that's kind of a weird, interesting side fact.
Yeah, I assume there was a reason for all of that somewhere in the eons of history.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and see what the actual, if there is more tangible connection than that. It seems pretty obvious that it must be something like that, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that'd be. Yeah, we should look that up and find that out after the cast. But so my next question then is, there's 8 reindeer in our modern history. Is that an analog to the 6 to 8 black men?
I think it's just a conveniently round number.
Okay.
I don't know, but maybe it is though. Like maybe there's something else tied in there. Like there's some further root story that involves 8 of something.
See, that's what I was kind of thinking, because it's like the reindeer are kind of like his 8 assistants, right? Like they're and not to read too deeply into metaphors, but I mean to a certain extent, the reindeer are slaves.
Okay. Yes.
I'm just saying, like,
what you're saying.
They're bound and forced to pull the sleigh, right? Like,
Peter, please don't come and kill me for laughing at that. I swear to God, Peter.
So, like, I feel like there could be a weird analog there. Maybe I'm just obviously jumping the gun.
I sort of thought the same thing, because it's like those 2 numbers are close, right? Like you see 8 in both, so I don't know, maybe there is a connection.
Yeah.
So let's just let's kick this into overdrive for the next couple ones here, because there's a couple short ones.
Yeah.
And it's
So David Sederais' brother Paul is nothing like him in any way, shape, or form.
Oh right, yeah, that was the next one. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm going across instead of down the page.
Yeah,
everything's fine.
So yeah, Rooster at the hitching post.
Rooster at the hitching post. So this is our introduction, or no, this is our second interaction with Rooster, isn't it?
I think he's briefly mentioned in passing, but this is the first like real introduction to him as a person.
Yeah. The rooster, really different from the rest of his family. I think it's because he was the only one who lived his entire life in the South. Like, he was born there.
That's fair, because most of them were born in like New York State.
Yeah,
right?
and the older Sederais certainly identify as being Northern and from New York,
Yeah.
rather than being like they moved to South Carolina. They don't consider that their origin point. So the rooster, super Southern,
Yeah.
like the most Southern person you'll ever see, or hear, because that's something that you don't get the same effect in the book.
Yeah.
In the audiobook, you hear Sederais' or David's, excuse me, imitation of the rooster's voice, which is this high, incredibly Southern sounding, kind of high speed whine. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, except that everything out of his mouth is some incredibly crass joke.
Yeah. There's
Like,
a lot of
impressively
swearing.
so.
There's a lot of swearing, a lot of bad jokes. He makes fun of Sederais for being gay, like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Calls him a faggot at least once.
Oh, definitely. In each of the two stories about him.
Yeah. And his entire business philosophy is based on the practice of a blowjob.
And that's such a good line when he's describing it in all this detail, and Sederais is just like, "Yep, no man, I get it."
He's like, you know what I'm saying? Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. And in the audiobook one, it's very much a like, oh, of course. You don't have to keep explaining to me.
Yeah.
Jeez. So yeah, that was really interesting because I feel like the rooster kind of revels in being extremely different from the rest of the family, like being the weird Southern one.
Yeah, he kind of like he's purposely crass and he's purposefully like he sets himself apart on purpose. That's just who he is.
I don't think in this one, but in the other story,
Yeah, the one about their
the baby Einstein was a later one about his child being born. They describe his in the middle of his floor is an embossed rooster. Like he's taken this identity on completely and he owns it.
Yep. Well, I mean, their father brought a rubber chicken to the wedding in order to prove a point because he couldn't find a rubber rooster.
Yeah, because he needed it for his best man speech.
I think the rooster is the closest to the father, probably.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. He's got that business drive and
Right, they're kind of like both handymen to a certain extent, and like talking about that sort of thing, and they're crass.
And the confidence, even where it isn't necessarily earned.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the similarities, or maybe even just the differences between the way the father dealt with his tenants in those houses that they owned.
Yeah.
Versus the way that the rooster talks about his business, when, yeah, he's the youngest of them. But yeah, so he's talking about like some job that he had to do, and he immediately goes into business mode and is like, oh, you have to remove all those flooring bits and put in the subfloor, and like it's this immediate businessman mode.
Yeah.
But I think that's from both parents. Like, he comes by that honestly.
Yep. I would think so. And his wife is very similar.
Yep.
Kathy.
Kathy and her pug, a loud breathing pug,
Venus.
as all pugs do. Yeah. But I mean, really, I thought the main thrust of that particular story was about
The drowning, right? Or the near drowning?
the near drowning and the I mean, yeah, it was more about that, but it was about like the relationship between David and the rooster.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the interleaving of that story I thought was really interesting. While the rooster is saying his vows, David's recounting a time that he went swimming with Paul, and like Paul almost drowned and he rescued him. Or well, David kind of went out and dragged him back to shore. Whether or not he put him in danger to begin with, is kind of up in the air.
I don't think he really did. I think they were both just swimming and it got out of control, which happens.
But like the interleaving of Paul getting hauled up on shore and going "fuck you," and then saying "I do" at the wedding, like in the same tone of voice.
Yeah, and I thought again, this is one of those moments where I feel weird about the perspective. It's like it's not that he cares that his brother was going to die. It's that he cares that he was the one who it would happen to, sort of thing. Of like, this is about the way people are going to look at me, not so much as what's happening to you.
Yeah, well, I think that says a lot. Like most of these stories say a lot more about David Sederais than about anyone he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's that theme of him having a really hard time of seeing things from other people's perspectives. He's constantly like even with his sister saying like, well, why don't you do this thing, that she has no interest in doing. Mm-hmm. And like trying to push her down this road that is not the thing that she wants to do.
Yeah.
But it's the thing that he wants to do.
Yeah.
So therefore it seems like the obvious solution to him. So the next one I thought it didn't really have a lot or too much going on, but it was an amusing premise.
Yeah. This was one of the more boring ones in my opinion.
Yeah, it felt like it could have been a lot shorter.
I agree.
So Possession is basically just about David and Hugh looking for a new house.
Yeah. Because
their lease is up, and so they go to the Anne Frank house
in Amsterdam, and just like, oh, I want this house. And
yeah,
he's like, it's the you can never have this house.
it's that the immediate possessiveness that he feels about this particular property, and he can just envision in his mind this elaborate story that he could tell, or like that he can tell to other people to kind of, you can tell it's to kind of impress them.
Yeah.
At least I thought that's what it was.
I think that's what a lot of his stuff is, right?
But then he's self-aware of his own like avarice, because he thinks about like, oh, who is the terrible neighbor who could have turned in Anne Frank, and he looks out the window and sees the reflection of himself in that window, which he then looks right past to see the next house and says, oh no, actually I want that one.
Yeah, this beautiful apartment across the street.
So again, I feel like it was him looking at himself in the mirror and then the reflection looking back at him.
Yeah, and I agree with what Sissel was saying. I think it's a very good exploration of the light and dark. And I think it also has a lot to do with the thing that I've noticed a lot about this second half is how much Sederais is focused on recounting facts he's read or stories he's heard. Not just like his own stories, but like stuff he read in the newspaper or stuff he saw on the internet or like whatever, right? Like it's a lot of like, oh, this random fact about this thing all over the place, right? And I feel like the whole thing about Anne Frank kind of fits into that, where he's recounting what he knows of this story that he heard.
Yeah, but like as distorted through his lens.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. That comes up a bunch of times. Like,
it's like almost every interaction he has with one of his family members comes down to something like that.
Even so just again for another of our like lightning round stories, 2 after this is Can of Worms. That's all it is.
Yeah,
is him thinking about some other thing that's kind of tangentially connected to this the random incident that he had with his with Hugh and one of his siblings or some friend, I think it was.
Yeah, it's one of Hugh's friends from college.
Well, basically nothing happens.
Yeah, and it's like he references the O.J. Simpson trial and like a bunch of other stuff, and
yeah, it's this moment in time, and kind of his thoughts about it, and not much more than that.
Yeah,
which is weird.
He's kind of like looking at the people in the diner, and they're looking at him, and he's afraid of how they think about him.
Yeah, and it was that perspective thing again, is
Yeah.
him thinking about how they're thinking and them thinking about how that one can of worms, like if you could just see it from that different perspective, maybe you'd have this secret piece of information.
Yeah.
Which is kind of something that he touches on, like not just the perspectives, but the complications of your own decisions on later life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what would if he lived his whole life just based on the beliefs of when he was 8 years old, what would he have ended up doing? Like what would his life look like now? It would have all been cowboys and rocket ships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I thought it was just like even your own perspectives end up being alien to you.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right? Like the past is a foreign country.
Yeah, for sure. So after Possession is my second favorite story, which is Put a Lid on It, which is where he's meeting up with his sister Tiffany.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see how different Tiffany is from everybody else. I guess they're all eccentric, right?
Each one of them is their own special kind of weird.
Yeah. So.
And this one is also an insight into kind of the descent into madness.
Yes.
Really, of Tiffany's life.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And it's I agree. It's the companion piece to Now We Are Five. It offers that extra set of insight into how all of that went down.
Yeah, and he manages to do his light and dark contrast again, because he opens it on that hilarious scenario where he goes into the bathroom and he hears someone on the phone, and he talks to Tiffany about it. Like, you wouldn't talk to someone on the phone while you were taking a crap, would you? She's like, well, I mean, like, maybe I'd just be like opening a jar.
And then he's just like,
and then he realizes how many times that he's fallen for this.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, you definitely start to see that descent into madness, and where her mental illness comes from, for sure.
Yeah, just like the things left undone, the floor torn up and not ever dealt with. You know, the fact that she's so accustomed to walking on this vile flooring or lack of flooring that, you know, she doesn't really even have like feet anymore. They're just hooves.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of these stories, it has a super good last line.
Yeah.
Where, you know, Tiffany goes in another room and she's having a phone conversation, and he says, I fill the sink with hot soapy water, roll up my shirt sleeves, and start saving your life.
Yeah, I thought the most interesting moment of that, and it has to do with the last line, coming back to it, is when he talks about how he says stuff about maybe you should put in linoleum or whatever, and then he realizes that he's kind of saying what his father would say, and he's like, I don't want to be my father. Like, I absolutely do not want to be my father, so I need to see it from her perspective. And the last line resonates with that, of like, I've done this before, she doesn't appreciate it, but I'm trying to help her either way.
Yeah, you have to do it because she doesn't realize that she needs help.
Yeah. Also, he has an obsession with cleaning.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, that comes up all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah, chicken in the hen house.
Yep.
So this was the
second creepiest one.
It was real creepy.
It was real creepy.
It was a classic example of Sederais getting himself into trouble because he thinks he's in trouble, not because he actually is.
Yeah, I thought this was another one of the ones that really showed insight into his own mental issues. of like the compulsions and the anxiety he gets, and how he deals with what people think of him, whether it's something people would actually think or not, like what he perceives people think of him.
Yeah, and it's because he's seeing that image that the media portrays, like the hysteria is trying to push into people's minds.
Yeah.
So like, he's at a hotel, he's, you know, just down at the coffee bar trying to get a coffee in the morning, and he sees this kid who's trying to clearly collect some hot chocolate for himself and coffee for his parents, but he's got 3 cups and only 2 hands. So Sederais offers to help him by carrying them up, and then realizes immediately, oh shit, why am I escorting this unaccompanied child who I've never met before in a public area to a hotel room?
Yeah. And then there's another gentleman who's even creepier.
Well, he seems creepier in this context, but in real life, he just seemed like normal.
I suppose. It was just one of those things of like, I was like, oh dear God.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not like I don't see this kind of strange person every day at work, but like, which is why I don't think it's that weird. There's a lot of these weirdos out there, but
I think you're right. I think it's one of those things of like, in the context of the story, where I almost got lost in what the radio people were saying myself.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like started skewing that veil on everybody in the story.
Yeah, now you're seeing it from their twisted funhouse mirror.
Yeah. Where I was like, oh God, there's this guy and he's touching this kid. Like, not inappropriately or anything, but it's just like...
No, he just like pats him on the head one time.
Yeah, and I was just like, uh-oh.
Shit's going down, man.
Yeah.
But then, you know, at the end, it has the reasonable conclusion. He gives the coffee to the parent at the door, and they just think he's a bellhop. Give him $1. Because they're not thinking like that. They're not imagining that paranoia.
Yeah.
They have this whole separate perception where, like, clearly everyone is like them.
They're weird, though. Like those parents.
Well, they sent their kid down to get some coffee at a hotel. I don't know. And it was not a big or fancy hotel.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just... I felt like they were strange in the way that he... But maybe it's just like the sort of voyeurism of it, right? Of like, they're kind of still asleep and...
Exactly. It's such an unusual environment to be in a hotel like that, especially where like you can go from that public, extremely public environment of the hotel hallway, open the door, and it's like, bam, the bed is right there, and whoever's in it is right there now, immediately visible to the hallway.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. It's an unusual social scenario that most people don't find themselves in all the time. And clearly, even as much traveling as Sederais does, she doesn't find himself in the role of the bellhop at the door that often.
Yeah, he travels an awful lot.
Well, he does a lot of like book tours and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, so that's kind of the impression I was getting. Like, I guess he does like readings, and he speaks at colleges and stuff. Several of the stories where he meets up with the siblings are because he's in town for something similar.
Mm-hmm. These ones are very much once his career is established.
Yeah, for sure. So then, which leads us into our next story, Who's the Chef?
Yeah, which was my least favorite one, just because it felt like kind of nothing happened and almost nothing was even said.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of weirdly passive-aggressive about Hugh.
Well, it was just them. It was a couple bickering, and like you can't see that from outside properly.
So,
because there's so much like internal architecture.
Do you think that him and Hugh bicker a lot because he writes about Hugh in his stories?
I think we just get a skewed perspective of them bickering more than they actually do because... Whoa. Yeah, probably don't post links and don't... Whoa. Well, that happened. Rip Stittsville.
Remember that bots are stupid and they see periods with no spaces as links.
Oh, and I don't know. I think the chat's frozen in our in the stream.
No, it's not. It's good.
No. Like the regular, not the actual chat. Oh no, never mind.
It doesn't show. It doesn't.
I see. Yeah, I just deleted it. Never mind.
It doesn't show the bot.
Well, and a bunch of other stuff that just got.
Yeah, it doesn't show commands and the bot. So I've actually told it to filter that out, so you don't actually see that on the side.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Baby Einstein, we kind of talked about a bit. I was sort of fascinated by the fact that like the youngest one and the most I would argue the most down to earth one, the most blue collar one, is the one who has the kid.
Yeah, and the one that they would have least expected to have a child.
Yeah.
And when they were growing up.
Well, mostly because he was a child when they were growing up.
Yeah, and I love that they describe him as, like if he ever did have a child, the way they saw it, he'd like try and dismantle it to see how it worked, and then get distracted because he needed to go eat a dozen tacos or something.
Mm-hmm. Valid
exactly.
Choice.
That seems legitimate to me. Like, oh wait, a dozen tacos, I can put this baby together later. I believe that even now.
But it was also really fascinating because I personally feel like, other than maybe his and Hugh's relationship, it's the most genuine recounting of people who actually love each other in this book. Where, Paul is over the moon about having this kid, and he honestly loves his wife because, like, he's legitimately worried about her in a bunch of spots, and the marriage thing, and, like, there's a lot to that.
Well, and especially in contrast to the previous story that we got about him, where he's like doing things like not bothering to defrost chicken wings and just leaning them against a back door and kicking them in half so that he can fit it into his toaster oven.
Yeah.
And now he's transformed into this father who is doting on his newborn child.
Yeah.
This complete transformation and attention to detail.
Yeah. But like I really got a sense of like how over the moon Paul was, like how much he wanted for this to happen, and how excited he was and all that, and how sad he was that he couldn't have another kid.
Yeah. That was an interesting kind of throwaway fact near the end, or near the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that he really touches on that too much, but yeah, there was definitely that expression of like he was pretty upset.
Yeah.
But to be the only one out of 6 siblings, to have one kid, like, yeah, it's a big drop in numbers.
For sure. But not all of them got married, right?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Because Lisa got married, Paul got married.
Mm-hmm.
Did Gretchen get married?
I think so.
Not that marriage is a predilection for kids, but I'm just saying, like, in the time span. Tiffany definitely didn't.
Right. Only Lisa and Paul.
Okay, that makes sense. Because, like, obviously Sederais can't have, or it's unlikely that Sederais is going to have kids. Considering
he could adopt children,
he could adopt
or
children.
get a surrogate.
That's true.
But he probably won't. And as he pointed out
he kind of doesn't like kids, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I never even really considered it an option, even given the potential.
Yeah. And I think his family is sort of similar with their like cashmere sweaters and all that jazz.
Yeah, I love the talk of the highly impractical gifts, the things that will be destroyed as soon as a baby comes in the same room.
P.S. The fur collar is detachable.
Yeah, on the baby's romper. The satin romper. Yeah, people who don't interact with actual babies. Not that I do, but like I know that children destroy things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting story. I think the last one though is my personal favorite of all of these.
Okay.
Like even though 6 to 8 Black Men I thought was the most like in your face kind of laugh out loud moment.
Yeah.
Of hearing his absurd reactions to
the
story.
And it was fascinating on the audiobook because it was actually a live reading. So there was an audience and they were laughing along, and like it really gave like I thought it was really neat because if you paid attention to his voice, like you could tell he was excited when people laughed and all that, which I think feeds again into sort of the perspective he's given himself of having that ego and having that like wanting to be accepted and all that jazz, right? Like it fits into that.
Yeah, he really like was reveling in the audience attention.
Yeah.
And definitely in the moments where he could tell that the audience had read the book and they were anticipating the next line to come.
Yeah.
Right, like he played it up. He'd give that awkward or that pregnant pause.
Yeah.
It's a totally different experience to listen to it because he performs it in a certain way, but then I feel like the writing is better when you read it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the last one, the Nuit of the Living Dead.
Yeah, this was a lot of weird.
It was totally weird.
But it was an interesting weird, not like a creepy weird.
Well, it was creepy, but like it was his awareness of his own potential creepiness. And I felt like that closed out the book really well with him. Like at the very beginning, it's him inadvertently being weird and creepy as a kid.
Yeah.
And now at the end, it's him doing things inadvertently.
Yeah.
And then, but being aware of it and seeing it and trying to compensate for it. So like he has actually had this, or at least this arc has been kind of inserted into these stories just in the order in which they're told.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about Sederais alone in his house in Normandy. A mouse gets caught in a mouse trap and it isn't quite dead, and he's got to kill it.
So well, he was trying to save it, and in his fear of actually touching the mouse, he couldn't do it properly, and so he accidentally broke the mouse's bones. So he's like, "This mouse isn't dead, and I basically tortured it for the last half hour, so I'm gonna drown it." And yeah. I was like, Jesus, dude.
Drowning this mouse, a bunch of tourists drive up in the middle of the night looking for their cottage that they've rented, and David offers to give them give the driver of this van a map, and he invites him inside. And so they walk past this mouse paddling around in the bucket, and he's like, "Oh, you have a swimming mouse." And then they go inside, and it's David's Visible Man thing that he's been putting together with like the guts all pulled out of it.
I was super fascinated by that model. I'm like, I kind of want one of those.
Yeah, well, they are cool. They're super cool.
Yeah.
But like then, you know, the taxidermy things and like the big butcher knives that are just sitting on the counter. This perfect serial killer scenario, like some
his true crime,
his
true crime magazines that he swore he got to better learn French.
Yeah, his dumb pulp stuff. So yeah, it's all like you can just see this strange Dutch or maybe Swedish man going into his house and kind of looking around and just seeing each of these things in turn. Like I can see the shots in a horror movie, you know, like it would crash zoom in on each one.
Oh yeah, totally. And you just hear the talking in the background sort of thing. But I think this is very similar in effect to the one where he's helping the kid, right? Where it's about how he thinks they're seeing him. Because he has no idea if that's what the guy saw. He's just kind of like, not. Oh my God, like this is what I'm showing.
Yeah, it's playing up the drama of what he thinks the other person might think he thinks.
Yeah.
Right? It really is that many backs and forths.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know. And then the guy just takes the map and takes off, and by the time Sederais comes back out, the mouse is dead.
I like that line when he opens the drawer and there's like a monkey skull, and he's just like, where does the stuff even come from? It's like it was planted in his house to make it creepier.
Monkey skull, the novelty human finger pen.
Yeah,
like Just all these things that on their own mean nothing, but in combination paint you as this horrifying serial killer.
In the middle of the night in France.
With your swimming mouse.
With your swimming mouse. I felt so bad for that mouse. Oh my
god. Yeah. So, all in all, what was your end takeaway here?
Yeah, and Sissel was just asking me about that. Like, so did listening to the book change your opinion of Sederais? Because I was quite negative last time. And to be honest, as I was reading this, my opinion didn't change a whole lot. I did like hearing the audiobook. I thought it did add a little bit something to the storytelling. Because I got a better feel for the pacing, I felt. I really wish that I had... my audiobook didn't work properly, so I ended up not being able to listen to all of it like I had planned. I'd planned to listen to the entire second half. That didn't really happen. I listened to the second two stories, I guess, because I missed the first one. But I really wish I'd read the creepy ones, the ones I personally felt were really creepy, and see how he would have presented it differently, telling it himself. But overall, I don't feel like this kind of book is my cup of tea. Like, this isn't something that I would usually read, and I don't think I'm going to go and read too much more from Sederais. That's not to say if I saw something interesting, I wouldn't read it or anything like that. I don't particularly dislike it. It's just, I don't know if this is the thing I would invest a lot of time in.
So now having read this, would you find it interesting to go and read his book that just came out that was his actual diary?
I would
see how that compares.
I would consider that, because I bet you there would be a lot of really weird insight that I would find fascinating.
Yeah, I'd love to see what the difference is between what he originally put down on his diary, like right after the fact, and when he's writing the story about it however many years later.
Yeah. So yeah, like, I enjoyed the writing, and I think the writing of this has already started to influence the way that I look at prose, especially creative nonfiction, even in my own blogging and stuff like that. Not that I do a ton of blogging, but to get that feel and I mean, even I was writing some prose today, and I was like, I could feel that sort of balance of vagueness versus specificity that he plays with, and I really like that, because that's very similar to my own style, and it gave me some insight into how to better do that. So I think overall I enjoyed the experience, but it's not something I'm necessarily ready to invest more time in.
Well, that's fair. But David Sederais is definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a try, and it's good to start in on something like this, which is a stronger book. But as Stittsville pointed out, his books all build. So, like, the more you know who these characters are, the more pre-existing knowledge you have, the more you have to appreciate the humor and kind of tragedy of any of the given situations.
I agree, and the reason I agree is because of what we were saying earlier. Because if you were here last week, or not last week, if you were here last episode and heard me talk about I accidentally read And Now We Are Five, which I thought was brilliant. I really like that one, which was an article he put out in the New York Times, the New Yorker, not the New York Times.
A little different.
Yeah. Where we read the one about Tiffany in this, and I knew more about her. So, like, I knew about the art, and I knew about the way she felt about art, and I knew about the way Sederais felt about her art later. So when he was talking about in this story, I knew a lot more about it, and I could see the links. So I agree with you there. I think that's probably true. Like any other character in fiction, when you're reading a series, you can do different things based on how the audience is used to a character being, or what they're like, or having insight into why they would say something or how they say something.
Yeah, for sure. It's that human context that adds a lot to it.
Yeah. So if I had to read one more Sederais book, excluding the diary, like the actual diary, what would you recommend?
It's a tough call. I would say probably one of the earlier ones,
Because I know Naked comes up a lot.
Naked is really good. I would say Me Talk Pretty One Day. Stittsville says Naked. I say Me Talk Pretty One Day, I think, which is the second one. I'm pretty, because it's Naked, Me Talk Pretty, and then Barrel Fever.
These titles, man.
They're all really good.
Okay. Well, I'll take a look at that, and I might be willing to listen to the audiobook. Is probably more where I would go with that, because the audiobook I could just kind of have on in the background.
I agree. I said already, I listened to this, like I read it and then I listened to the second half. I didn't listen to the whole audiobook yesterday afternoon. But it was only like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Not even that.
Yeah.
I actually skipped some of them because it was like I heard this. I don't need to hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, what are your thoughts? I mean, you read this before, right? So
I read it a long time ago before, and I really the only one that I remembered with any kind of distinction was 6 to 8 Black Men, just because it was so standout and weird compared to some of the other ones. It was a lot more interesting on this read for sure, because I guess I'm not like 16 or 18 whenever I read it the first time.
Yeah,
I feel like I got a bit more real world perspective on how this shit actually goes down.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of this reading as well, of like having more world perspective, knowing more about how to deal with the different social scenarios that he's talked about, and having dealt with some of those, like you get a better insight into why he's doing things and why he thinks things.
Oh, totally. Like being in those weird, embarrassing situations where you can't get out until the other person releases you.
Yeah.
Like in that blood work one, where he's in the hotel or in that guy's apartment.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had anything that severe, but that happens to everyone, where you're in a situation where it's like, okay, I can't acknowledge what is happening, but I just have to quietly back away slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I felt, like I related to a lot of it a lot more on this read. It's still funny though. I definitely laughed out loud at more than one point during reading this, which I'm sure made me look like a lunatic to people around me. But whatever, it was funny.
Yeah.
Listening to anything that the rooster says coming through David Sederais' mouth, I think is hilarious. That high-pitched voice that he does.
I'd be interested to see that, because I didn't really get to hear him do voices all that much in the parts that I listened to.
Yeah, you gotta copy that file down and just listen to it locally and not stream it.
Yeah, I will try. So let's just follow up with a couple of things we were saying last episode. Did you read And Now We Are Five?
I did not read it.
Okay, so that's fine. Off the table. Very good. Read
Sorry.
it. It's all good. You put up with a lot more weirdness, so it's fine. Did you end up checking out any of the Stuart McLean things?
I don't even remember discussing that.
Okay, never mind then.
We talk about so much stuff.
But after listening to Sederais read the audiobook, I really got that that vibe. Right.
I remember that. Sorry. Yeah. I totally even took it down as a note. And then I didn't go back and look at my old notes. I only looked at my new notes.
Yeah, so I definitely got that storyteller vibe from listening to him tell it live with an audience, and the Stuart McLean stuff is very similar.
Yeah.
In the fact that it's someone telling an anecdote to an audience, and they're interacting with it, there's a lot to that.
There's a lot more than just reading the story when you hear that.
Yeah.
You're right, because it's a dialogue between the audience and the reader.
Yeah. And I think the oral storytelling really brings out the pacing that you don't get in a novel in the same way, where I read it at a certain speed, so I get it at a certain speed, and there's only so much they can do to add emphasis or to add pauses or whatever that really break up those moments that give you anticipation.
And things can't like interrupt in the same way, because like if I'm reading something, if I'm at work and I'm reading it at lunch, or like there's going to be people talking and I'm going to get interrupted and I'm going to have to go back and read a line again, and so then the flow gets broken up in an unusual way that a writer can't really control.
Yeah.
I have not read Dark Matter.
I have not as well. I mean, we could add it to the list.
Is that in any way related to that show that is the same name? I bet it's not.
Probably not. I'm pretty sure that show is standalone.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, this book really good. The audiobook different and kind of better.
I think it's good to experience both in a way.
I'm glad that I went back and listened to it and not just read the book or just listened to it, because they complement each other in a really good way.
Yeah, I think you need to kind of do both, because they don't really like. You're right. They like build on each other. It's not like they're sort of in their own space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just wrap things up, because we're getting here to the end of our whole discussion, getting to the end of our timeline.
Yeah.
So that was Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim by David Sederais.
Yep.
Our next book is going to be called Sapiens. Hold on, let me bring up the actual title of it, because it's got a subtitle.
Yeah, Robin, just let us know how it is. We're booked until the end of the year, schedule-wise. So.
Yeah, but we're totally open for like January.
Yeah.
So if you want to get it in, then we can totally do that. And if you want to read in advance, that's fine. Just take some notes so you remember the stuff, and then we can do that later on. I will work that out. The book is Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. It should be really interesting, because it's a very different book from what we've read. It's going to be a non-fiction. It's a kind of pop science book about human evolution and about the era in history when there was more than one human species living simultaneously on the Earth.
Yeah. I got some anthropology textbooks back there that we can pop out for this one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. We should be joined by our good friend Rob. So.
Yeah, he's actually the one who suggested it to us. He was describing it to me. I'm like, you need to be on our book club.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even giving you an option. Just here's the date. And that date is actually the 18th of September for the next episode.
Yeah.
So be here, 18th September, 8 o'clock. It's going to be a Monday. It's always a Monday.
It's always a Monday.
Well, it is right now. We can play with that. Coming into the new year, maybe we'll see how that works. Monday works well for us, though, scheduling-wise.
I think so. I think Monday is probably our best bet for now, unless something drastic changes. And then after Sapiens, just because we've kind of got our act together and have sort of started scheduling things out, after Sapiens we're going to be reading Moby Dick.
Yep. The Mobius.
Yeah, by Melville.
Herman Melville. I've read part of like the very beginning, I think, like the first chapter. I don't think I've ever read further than that.
I've never read Moby Dick. I am super fascinated to read it, and there's a incredibly cool graphic novel version that I've been told about by several people that I think would be really cool to read as well, like a supplement.
That could be interesting. Did you watch In the Heart of the Sea?
I did not, but I am interested in maybe watching that.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be like the story behind the story.
Oh,
it's the real events that Herman Melville based his story on.
Interesting.
And left out all the worst parts of being marooned in the Pacific.
Well, that's storytelling for you.
Yeah. So I thought it was actually, like, for all it being a little overwrought, I thought it was an interesting movie. Certainly a good period piece.
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. When we do that, I think people totally go out and watch that, read Moby Dick, all the weird Moby Dick media that's out there, all that Dick media.
Yes.
Yeah, that's on my schedule as m.dick 1 through 3.
I'm not surprised by that.
Well, I don't know what else I'm supposed to list it as.
So yeah, that's
So, yeah,
kind
you-
of that's
Wednesday.
gonna I was gonna say that's going to kind of round out the year for us. That'll bring us into mid-December, and then after that, we'll take a break until after Christmas and come back in the new year.
Oh, God damn it, Robin. I wish that there were animated sunglasses descending onto those faces.
Yeah. So I think that's all of the news we have, or the
I think so.
yeah. So I guess just wrap it up. What's your media for this week?
Oh, geez. I watched The Defenders,
Yeah. What do you think?
which was not as good as the shows.
Yeah.
Like it was better than Iron Fist, but it was I don't know. I don't think it was as hype as like Daredevil or Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
You gotta watch it yourself, and then
I will say that a lot of the people I've heard talking about it have said similar things.
Yeah, it just I don't know. It's 4 big characters, and like how do you find an enemy that can stand up to them? And I think they kind of fell down on that. The conspiracy was not like a we're gonna blow up the world. It was a kind of small fry thing. So I felt disappointed that way. I don't know. That's a longer discussion, but that's what I was watching. Plunk Bat, also Plunk Bat. 1,000 years Plunk Bat.
Yeah. What would my media be? I guess Netflix anime is what we're gonna go with. So I was watching Castlevania, which you recommended a couple episodes ago.
Yes.
And I thought it was fantastic.
It was really good.
It was 4 episodes, really tight storytelling, like no wasted space, everything added to the story. I loved Dracula's perspective at the beginning, super good. Really liked the portrayal by Richard Armitage of Trevor Belmont, like solid. Just he's like, like
His voice acting is so hilarious.
it's just like deep grunts the entire time. It was great.
Growling in that studio for days.
Yeah, and then I started watching Voltron, the remake.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's like all CGI and stuff, isn't it?
The robots are like 3D cell shaded, but
Okay.
it's 2D animation on the characters.
Interesting.
It is actually one of the best. Like, it is so well characterized. Like all of the characters and all of their dialogue is like built into their character and suits them as a character. So like it was one of these things of like I was like, stop doing exposition, you suck at exposition, and then just all of the characters responding to that exposition was fantastic. And the way that they interact with each other is fantastic. Like
I don't know. That's not what I expected from a Voltron.
yeah, it's got so much personality in the characters. Like it's brilliant, and I like the backstory stuff and the way that they did all that. Like it's really solid from that perspective. They just are a little heavy-handed with the exposition, I find, but the animation's great. Like really good animation. Same with Castlevania. Like the animation is solid. So those are my recommendations if you want to watch some cartoons.
Yeah, they're not exactly kiddie cartoons.
Well, Voltron is. But
Well, okay, Voltron, sure, but Castlevania is pretty violent.
yeah, very violent. He takes out an eye with a whip.
Oh God, so cool.
It was cool.
Yeah, so everyone out there in internet land, tune back in next time. Like I said, 18 September.
Yeah.
Check out our social media. I'm at MC Pepper Pockets on Twitter.
I'm at Accidental Origin, ACCDNTL Origin. I changed it.
That's a nightmare to spell.
I know, but it makes a lot more sense overall.
It does. Yeah. Brand awareness. Brand unity.
Brand unity, exactly. So that's social. Other than that, I will not be streaming next weekend on Sunday because I will be at Fan Expo in Toronto. But I am going to try and do a makeup stream the week after. And we should definitely do an input-output episode to follow up on how that goes.
Yep. I think that's going to be the main topic for our next one.
Perfect. So other than that, we will see you on the 18th, I guess.
See you then. Oh no, well they'll see you not next week but the week after.
But that's like a couple days before the 18th, isn't it? Or like a week before?
Yeah, it'll be a week before.
Yeah. Sorry.
So you'll have 2 episodes before our next before our next thing instead of 3.
Okay. You're right. That is accurate.
All right.
Anyway, thanks for joining us as always. Here on Read Write. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. The chat's already out.
Segue was bad.
We're done. Cut it off.
All right. We're out.